Hello and welcome to my review of Jump Force. In this video, we're going to start by talking about the Jump Force gameplay in general. Then we're going to move on to story mode and side missions. Then we'll talk about character customization, the online experience, and close it all out with some notes on presentation. So sit back, because this is going to be a long review. As far as gameplay goes, it all starts with you picking 3 characters from the available roster. They all share the same health bar, and you can switch characters at will. You can also use their assist attacks for synergy, and each character will have their own moveset. The basic attacks between characters are pretty similar, which is gonna make them easy to learn, but also remove some of the uniqueness between each character, because most of them will play very similarly. That said, they do have some uniqueness, and most of it comes from their special attacks, which have a wide array of effects. You have melee cinematic attacks, you have projectiles, you have buffs, you have so much stuff. Everyone also has an awakening gauge that they can use to power up or to unleash their ultimate attack. On default settings, the fights are pretty short, so a lot will end in timeout when you fight someone who is playing a bit more defensively, which goes to my first point against this game, which is the fact that it is pretty spam friendly. An overly aggressive playstyle is actually encouraged through different mechanics. Even when you're missing attacks, you're encouraged to mash your buttons. There are perfect counters when you hit the attack button, so while you're getting comboed, you're encouraged to keep mashing it. A lot of the special moves are safe on block, so you can throw out a lot of specials recklessly, and even if you're not safe on block, you can easily get out of the combo by using an escape. Escape does deplete your entire stamina meter, which at first seems harsh, but it starts regenerating quite fast, and you only need a little stamina to pull this move off. So you'll have this option at your disposal more often than not, and on top of that, you can also abuse the tag system whenever you do something stupid, because assists also will regenerate quite fast. The camera can also be a problem. You can tell this game is very proud of its visual effects, and they do look nice, but they get in the way sometimes. Charging up your energy covers up your opponent so you can't see what they're doing, or some characters are just too big that they end up covering your whole screen. And when that happens, you just can't block, because if you start blocking, you won't be able to see what your opponent is doing. So overall, it's a game that encourages aggressiveness, and even when you counter your opponent perfectly, you might still get caught in a combo again because they won't stop pressing buttons. If you're looking for a competitive arena fighter, this game isn't it. The developers themselves said this game will not be a competitive, it's a very casual arena brawler. But in the end, what that means is that you just can't take it too seriously. And if you manage to do that, this game can be a lot of fun. There's a lot to discover here. Different combos with different characters, synergy between assists, who you like or dislike to play. There's something to this combat system that makes it fun to practice and improve at. As long as you know going in that no matter what you do, no matter how good you become, you might just get caught by some kid pressing random buttons, because it's the kind of game that rewards that playstyle. That's how this game plays across all of its game modes, and it doesn't deviate much from this formula. So now that we know how this game plays, let's look at some of the game modes available in Jump Force. When you first log into Jump Force, you will be met with a cutscene that sets up the story, and then you'll be taken to a character creation menu. Here you will make your own avatar, picking from different hairstyle options, eyes, eyebrows, the usual stuff. Then you'll drop into this lobby, which is from where you start all of your activities, and also talk to different characters or go shopping for new abilities or outfits for your created avatar. You can travel around the lobby on foot or by vehicle to make your movement faster, but the whole lobby does feel very janky. Your character's movement animation doesn't feel great. They're always shaking their head while running for some reason, and I'm just not a big fan of this lobby. Not only is it impractical to actually meet up with other players, since other players are constantly fading in and back out, which means that even if you're standing on the same spot as a friend of yours, you may not be able to see them. It also feels like it's unnecessarily big, and it doesn't feel good to walk around in it, so maybe a better solution could have been created for this lobby. This is also where you can pick up your story missions, your side missions, or go online. So let's talk about each one of those in that order. The story missions in this game are terrible. There's no easy way to say this. It is a bad story mode. It's nothing but a series of battles interlaced with cutscenes. There are no unique mechanics, it's just the battle system you already know. Well, I guess some fights can be 1v1 or 2v1 instead of the usual 3v3, but outside of that, the game doesn't do anything unique, aside from introducing an RPG system. Your characters level up, getting more health and more attack power as a result, and what this ultimately means is that you can become under-leveled or over-leveled for some of your story missions. So it doesn't add much variety to this already monotonous story mode, and they could have easily added some fun modifiers to the story missions just to make them more interesting. But the leveling up system literally just increases the damage and the health as you progress in the story, to give it a feeling of difficulty that ultimately just feels very artificial. The story itself is also pretty bad. Not only is most of it incredibly predictable, 95% 90% of this story mode is filler. There are 9 chapters in total, and each chapter has one mission that actually moves the story forward. So overall, the story mode could be summarized in 9 total missions, instead of the dozens of missions that you're required to do. And is the filler any good? No, not at all. The writing in cutscenes feels off most of the time. It's like a lot of the dialogue doesn't seem to fit what the characters actually are like in their original shows. And there are definitely some interesting interactions. For instance, I love the one where they saw Kenshin fight, and every swordsman just wanted to ask him for advice. That was neat. But most of these cutscenes are completely meaningless. They add nothing to the story. They don't do anything interesting with the characters. It's pure filler. It's boring. And it boggles my mind how they were able to unite these many interesting characters and write such a bad story out of it. The cutscenes also leave much to be desired. There are a few good ones with decent CG animation and cool fighting sequences, even if they break your frame rate once in a while. This was recorded on the PS4 Pro, everybody. But the good cutscenes are very, very few. Most of the cutscenes are just characters standing around talking to each other. And we've already addressed how bad the writing actually is, so characters talking to each other is not an interesting thing in Jump Force. The good cutscenes happen once per chapter, so I think we're starting to see a pattern here. There's only one good story mission per chapter, and only one good cutscene per chapter. Yeah, they had a super short story mode that they needed to stretch for as long as possible. And they do this using a couple of familiar gimmicks that are just so infuriating. I'll give you 2 examples. Gimmick number 1, going on a mission and solving nothing. Hey Jump Force, there's a problem we need to deal with. Oh, the problem is this villain, let's fight. The fight ends, the villain just walks away. Wait up, they yell, but how could they possibly catch up to him? He's walking too fast. Well, nothing left to do but going back to base. Nothing was learned, nothing was solved. Annoying gimmick number 2. You win, but you actually lose. You know when games make you battle an enemy and you defeat them, sometimes very easily, but then the cutscene is like, you didn't stand a chance. So you won the battle, but you actually lost. Jump Force does this way too often, to the point where it became predictable, and that just makes you not want to fight in the first place. Plus, this story mode is plagued with technical issues. There are way too many loading screens. They're not long, there's just too many of them. A typical Jump Force mission will consist of walking up to the mission, loading screen, cutscene at the base, loading screen, cutscene on the stage that you're gonna fight, loading screen, fight, loading screen, post-fight cutscene, loading screen, cutscene at the base, loading screen, and you're back in the lobby, ready to repeat the whole process. This was one mission, and some of the cutscenes are as short as this. Really, we had to go through a loading screen for that? Some of the cutscenes also have some very weird animation work like, goodbye Frieza, your planet needs you. I've seen way worse on Twitter, but I'm guessing that's the PC version. I didn't find anything as bad, but still, everything looks a bit weird and janky. Most cutscenes have missions, but no voice acting, which for this game's budget feels like a corner they really shouldn't have cut. Oh, and for some reason, Ryuk's voice is missing. Maybe it will be patched in the future, but right now, Ryuk doesn't have a voice. Overall, the story mode has a very low-cost feel to it, and it seems like it was written by some amateur fanfic author who's taking their first steps on Tumblr. Nothing about the story mode makes it worth playing, and if I wasn't reviewing this game, I would have never finished it. I would have dropped it and never looked back. Outside story missions, you also have these things called free missions, and I know you see extra missions in there too. You should do those. Definitely do them. They unlock essential stuff for your character, but there are only a few of them. It's not even worth mentioning. The free missions, though, there are a lot of them. These missions have you fight a bunch of different characters, and they are how you'll come to unlock most of your character customization, items, and abilities. You can find a list of the items that are unlockable in each mission, and they made the Xenoverse mistake again. You're not guaranteed any of these items upon finishing the mission, which means that if you're chasing something specific, chances are you'll have to repeat the mission again and again and again. I thought we've been over this. This is not fun, especially since Jump Force doesn't have any co-op, you know? At least in Xenoverse, you could farm these missions with friends. Jump Force is a solo game, and repeating the same mission over and over against the CPU is just a bad way to unlock the items that you want. And once again, there's very little variety in the missions here. They're all a series of battles against 1 or 3 characters maybe, and there are some minor bonus objectives for each mission, like clearing the mission with at least 60% HP left, or landing a 19-hit combo, but overall it just means play well, defeat these guys fast, get your reward. It's not enough to make these missions feel unique at all. So clearing all of these missions once is already a big pain, but on top of that, Having to repeat certain missions to unlock certain items? Oh no thanks. And all of these offline missions, both the story and the free missions, are played with your created avatar at the center of it. You're playing free missions to unlock items for your avatar, and he's the main character of story mode. So let's talk a bit about your avatar customization and the progression of unlocking items and abilities. Now, you don't unlock much during story mode. You have to go out of your way and do these free missions if you want to unlock stuff, but you do get a ton of money. And the shop has some costumes, not all, but it does have all the abilities available. So you can always just spend the money that you get in story mode instead of doing the free missions. And I was happy to have this choice. I can either get them for free and put in the work, or I'll just use all this cash that I won in story mode to buy some abilities and bypass those missions. I was also happy with the rate at which I unlocked new things to put on my character. That said, there are some weird limitations. You can choose from 3 different fighting styles. You can fight like Goku, Luffy, or Naruto. And you choose this fighting style at the beginning, and you can never change it again, which just seems like a big design flaw. You mean I have just entered the game for the very first time, and I'm about to choose one of 3 fighting styles that I cannot have possibly tried beforehand, and I'll be locked to this choice for the rest of my playthrough? How does that make any sense? You are able to create multiple avatars, so you can create another character and choose the fighting style that you want. But for your first character, you just have to guess which one you're gonna like. And then there are also some abilities from different characters that you just cannot have. For instance, you cannot have any of the JoJo characters' abilities. You cannot have any ability from Yugi except for Draw. And I don't know if this was done for the sake of game balance or what it was. But since this game is not meant to be a competitive game, I don't see why you shouldn't just include all the options. As far as items go, I'm happy with the variety here. I wish some restrictions didn't exist though. For instance, if you want to have a beard and also a halo, you can't, because both of these are accessories for your head, and you can only have one head accessory. If you want to have a second accessory, it's got to be something for your back. Then you got some gloves that don't allow you to wear a shirt or a jacket, which sometimes feels right. Others, it's like, come on, they totally fit together. Weird restrictions like that may prevent you from making the character that you actually want, but with that said, there's enough variety here to keep me happy for a while. Moving on to versus matches, you can choose to fight online or offline. Offline is where you fight against a CPU or against a friend, locally, with 2 controllers. The camera can get a bit weird since it won't be following one of you, but hey, at least there is an option for local play here. I just don't think this game was built with that in mind, so it feels a bit bolted on. And this is also where you can go into training. There's a practice mode where you can just lab combos, you can set training preferences. It's not perfect, but it's a lot more than what most arena fighters do. So I'm also happy that this is here. And then online you have the options of ranked, friendly, or quick match. I know you're asking, what's that? Register team? That's for you to set a favorite team of characters, so it's faster to select it when you go into a session. The ranked system for this game is, once again, not a ranked system, but a grinding system. Too many anime games do this to cater to snowflake fans who care too much about their rank and don't like losing. You do not lose points when you lose a match in ranked. You just get nothing. So if you keep trying, you'll eventually just get points. Slowly, but steadily. You'll eventually rank up, which in the end just means that this rank doesn't represent how good you are. It just says, oh, I played a lot of this game. At least that's how it works with lower ranks. I do hope higher ranks have you losing massive points, but it just seems like the same ranking system they've had for other Bandai Namco games. And again, hey, this is not competitive, so they can get away with doing this. It's just a personal pet peeve of mine because I like fighting for my rank. It's one of my favorite things to do online. I like feeling that I'm improving at the game, and I don't like getting a reward just because I quote-unquote played a lot. Before you queue for a ranked match, you can choose to match against people of a similar rank or people higher than you. And you can also set your connection preferences, but these connection preferences do not detect Wi-Fi. So a connection could be good at the start, and then by round 2 it can get incredibly choppy, and there's nothing you can do about it. If you're playing online, you can expect lag, you can expect Wi-Fi warriors, and there's no way to dodge these players. On a friendly match, you do have a ton of options that you can pick. You can choose to use your character level or not. You can choose the rank of your opponent, the connection, the language, the number of rounds, or you can ignore that and just turn on friend invite and fight a friend of yours directly. It works pretty well, but it does take a while because once again, loading screens are a thing in Jump Force. And after you're done with your match, there's no rematch option, which means that if you want to keep playing that friend, you'll have to go through the lobby, throw that invite again, go through those loading screens, and then get to fight. How come there's no rematch option? It is such a pain to play with friends. Thanks to this small omission, it would make such a big difference. Please patch this in. I understand if rematch is not on ranked because they don't want that system to be abused. You could just farm rank against a weaker opponent. But on friendly battles, come on. Finally, you have a quick match where you just don't have any of these options. It's simply jumping into a match with default settings. It's good for warm-ups or for trying a new team before diving into ranked, that is, if losing on ranked actually mattered. I'd like to close this review with a quick word on presentation, talking about graphics, sounds, etc. I think audio-wise, this game is good. I mean, during story mode, there are cutscenes and sections where the audio balance feels off, but during actual gameplay, I think the sound design really helps sell a lot of those powerful hits, so I really like it a lot. The soundtrack is also good, I'm definitely a fan, and the graphics, well, I think it's hit or miss. I think Dragon Ball characters, for instance, they look terrible, they don't fit this art style at all. But then you look at characters like Yugi or Gaara, and they fit like a glove. So it's very hit or miss, they definitely went for it, I applaud them for trying something different. The visual effects during fights look stunning, even if they're not practical, and cover your view a lot of the times, they do look good. But not all the characters will look as good as Gaara and Yugi. Why are Deku's eyes so big? And taking all of that into consideration, it's time to score this game. If you're not familiar with our review scoring system, this channel uses letters. F and E are for bad games, D and C are for mediocre or just okay, B and A are for the good games. And this is my score for Jump Force. 偽物なにタグなやつだったな。驚いたぞ。 This game feels like it was built and sold on character hype alone. And every other aspect of it was made spending the least amount of resources possible. It's like after securing the licenses for these characters, it didn't really matter what game they built, because they knew that the character hype alone would sell copies of this game. And unfortunately, if we bite into that, we're just gonna keep getting these mediocre anime games. So we need to be critical. We need to voice why this is not okay. Just because a game has Goku doesn't mean we'll buy it, and ultimately, that's how we make them listen. It's with our wallet. Now, without wanting to sound hypocritical, a month from now, I'll probably still be playing this game. Because even though I complain a lot about the fighting system, I actually do enjoy playing it against other players. I do wish they aimed at making it more competitive, not because I want to alienate casual players, but because when you say your game is not competitive, you're excusing yourself from actually balancing the game. If a week from now someone finds a broken character or an exploitable mechanic, they can just say, it's not competitive. And if you encounter that gimmick online over and over again, it's just gonna ruin the online experience. And if you take the online away, what's left to this game? A terrible story mode? Repetitive missions? Yeah, there's nothing left. The combat system is the only thing preventing me from giving this game a lower score than it already has. And that said, I still find it very, very hard to recommend this game at full price. But that's my review for Jump Force. If you've played the game and would like to add something, make sure to leave it in the comments. That way, viewers will not only get my opinion, but they can read yours as well. And as always, thank you very much for watching. My name is Globku, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.